We will go over a little bit of housekeeping to begin with, and then we will pass it over to our facilitator and our panelists. All attendees will be muted today to minimize background noise. Please freely use the chat feature throughout today's program, and we will get to your questions towards the end of our program. Today's event is being recorded, and a replay will be posted on SME Connect, and a link will be sent out via email post today's event. For any post-event questions, please feel free to email SME membership at membership@sme.org. Today's presenters, Arthur Hughes will be our facilitator today. We're being joined by Julia Peterson, who is recruiting manager of Form Energy. Laura Johnson, she's a career marketing strategist of Laura Johnson Careers LLC, and Tony Sita, Chief People Officer for Refocus HR Solutions. Arthur Hughes is an executive client partner and comes with over 30 years in the automotive industry.
Okay, so hello everyone. I'm very happy to be here and to be your facilitator today. So just to give me a little bit of a background on myself, I'm a graduate chemical engineer and as she said, former automotive industry executive. I held various global and regional leadership positions in procurement and supply chain in my nearly 20 years in the Tier 1 supplier network. About 5 years ago, I decided to pivot and I decided to pursue new opportunities that led me to my second and what some people might even say my third career. So today what I do is I help great people find great companies. And I do that by leveraging my diverse background to bring value as an executive recruiter in the automotive and aerospace industries. I'm also a career and job search coach and a university teacher and mentor. As part of my career coach, I'm also a certified digital personal branding specialist. And my personal mantra is, old keys will never open new doors. And with that, I like to explore and share the new and the next in job search and technology, and to help professionals and students create, own, and passionately communicate their personal value proposition to open their new doors. So how about we move on to Julia, so you can introduce yourself.
Thanks, Arthur, and thanks for the introduction. My name's Julia. I'm a recruiting manager at Form Energy. So I have been in the technical and engineering recruiting space for a little over 10 years. I joined Form Energy back in 2021, really with the goal of contributing to our mission of creating energy storage for a better world. And I currently am managing a team of recruiters at the company who are all focused on technical, R&D, engineering, and especially manufacturing. With that, I will pass it over to Laura.
Thank you. And I'm happy to be here today too. I live in the Metro Detroit area, Laura Johnson with LLEJ Careers, and I am a certified master personal branding strategist, one of 25 or maybe less than 25 in the world right now. I've had 3 different careers. So I started out after college with 10 years in child welfare in Chicago and decided I wanted to do something different. So I went back and got my MBA at DePaul and started 10 years as a corporate training and organization development director in financial services in California. And I was laid off of financial services in 2008, along with hundreds of other people, maybe thousands of other people. And that's when I transitioned to my third career, which is the career industry. And so I've been a solopreneur, and I also contract with a global career transition outplacement organization. And I work specifically with executives in that program. And I've had the privilege of working with over 1,000 clients from all sorts of levels and industries over the years. And it's just been really, really interesting to help people find out what their stories are, find out what their personal brand is, and make sure that they're creating messages that help them succeed. And with that, I will turn it over to Tony.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Laura. Like Laura, I've been lucky enough to work with a lot of companies across Canada, the US, Mexico, and Europe over the last, I would say, 10 or 12 years. doing both CHRO roles and also leading my own firm now with a partner. My background before was environment, health, and safety, and that got me a lot more interested in the way companies organize and how they delegate responsibilities and how they focus people on important things. And from there, I kind of grew into kind of an HR journey and really have enjoyed it. So in the last year and a half, with our people experience firm, we're helping companies a lot more on the manufacturing side to really mobilize their teams, especially when it comes to improving overall efficiency and optimization. And more recently, we're starting to work with AI and layering in AI to assist with manufacturing. Thank you.
All right, Chantel, do you want to cover this next couple of slides for logistics, or do you want me to go ahead?
Sure. Today's program will cover, we will review the virtual career fair platform for anybody who will be attending the SME Joint Career Fair with Women in Manufacturing next week. We're going to cover preparation and research, how to develop an elevator pitch, resume tips, virtual networking tips, and follow-up.
Okay, great. Thank you. And I have the pleasure of kind of kicking things off, and I'm going to talk a little bit about the virtual career fair platform first. So as you come into this, if you haven't registered yet, you'll need to go through the registration process and the setup wizard. And you'll need to make any changes or additions to your profile before the career fair starts, obviously, to make sure that all of your information is up to date as possible. You can click on the My Profile link on the left-hand side, and then where the gear wheel is, and then you click Edit Profile. And here you'll be able to make all of the changes that you need to your profile to get it up to date, to make sure it is ready and accessible for anyone that might want to take a look at you. So obviously, one of the things you'll be able to add is your resume. And we'll talk through some resume elements a little bit later in the presentation. But in addition to that, you'll be able to add a bio to tell recruiters about yourself. And you need to make sure that that is up to date, because that's going to be one of the things that the recruiters will use to go through the list of attendees to make sure they talk to the people that they want to talk to. So as much information as you possibly can to add there that's relevant to what you're looking for, types of jobs, industries, companies, things of that. The more specific you can be, certainly it'll help the recruiters find you a little bit easier. In addition to that, when you go into your profile, you can add a video resume to your profile as well. The video resume is 4 questions, and you get to record your responses. Make sure you activate your camera and microphone, obviously, to get that started. You'll be able to go through this multiple times. You can record yourself. If you don't like it, you can re-record yourself. And basically, it's at your pace. So you can do this. If you feel like you need to go practice, you can leave it and come back. It's very convenient for you to use. In the next area, what we're going to have you take a look at is you can go through and enter the lobby to basically attend the event. You'll be able to visit different booths that you'll find laid out in the lobby. And some of the, it may not be obvious, the companies initially, because they may be separated into categories. So you might need to do a little bit of clicking around to find the organizations that you are most interested in. Once you click on the category, you'll find all of the companies that fit that criteria. And then you can click on the company logo and visit the booth and start to interact with those organizations. Once you're in the booth, you can really just navigate to your heart's content. You can feel free to click around and view the content provided by the organization. There'll be information about the company that you can explore. And then, of course, one of the more interesting things naturally will be the job vacancies, and you can click on that to view and apply for jobs. When you click on the job vacancies, all of the jobs that the companies are listing in the career fair will be showing as available. You can click on the job to view the job description and the details, and of course, apply. In addition to that, you can also chat with a recruiter. And the chats, as you go through with them, they are one-on-one and not in a group setting. So you can feel free to ask questions and interact with the recruiter in a one-on-one basis. In addition to that, recruiters can reach out to you as well, as I mentioned earlier. and they can reach out to you to connect with you to try to schedule a one-on-one meeting or a face-to-face video chat. In addition to that, when you do click on chat, one of the features of the platform that we're on is that you don't actually have to stay in the booth. So you can do a little bit of multitasking. If you leave the booth or you want to go and take a look at more information in the booth or about the company, the chat will still be there and you can kind of navigate through to get a little bit more information about the company as you're speaking with the recruiter. In addition, so that's basically when the recruiter does reach out to you for a video call, if it's not convenient for you, please, don't feel like you have to take it necessarily at that time. You can deny the call if it's particularly if it's not a company perhaps you might be interested in. But this will give you a little bit of a view of what that screen might look like. And once again, if you do decide to accept the call, make sure that you accept camera and video usage in order to make sure that you're able to communicate with the recruiter at that time. And for each event you attend, one of the great features of the platform we have is that there is a tab called My Journey in your dashboard. And what this is going to do, or what the platform does for you, is it tracks all of your actions in the event and assists you with follow-up when the event is over. So once you've finished with the organization, you can click on leave. You can do a few things. You can click on leave notes to write a note. You can rank the company also. And you can write little notes about, keep status of yourself about the company, and kind of keep notes about what your experience was, things you might want to do and follow up, and things of that sort as well. So when the event is over, come back to this area and you'll be able to track everything that you've done during the career fair. You can review all your notes, the company rankings, the status, and the chat logs from all of the booths you have visited. So My Journey is a great tool to allow you to follow up with companies that you spoke with at the event, and then we'll talk to you about follow-up after towards the end of this presentation as well. Okay, so at this point, we're going to transition to preparation and research with Julia. So Julia, please take over.
Absolutely. And it's a great transition because getting very comfortable with the platform and getting your profile set up is a great first step in preparing for any virtual career fair. Beyond that, the best way to prepare is by understanding the companies that you're going to be chatting with. And I always recommend, before even looking at that list of companies that are going to be attending the career fair, to really do some introspection first, and think about what your job search priorities are. Everybody has different priorities. It might be location. People might have a strong preference for the size or the maturity of a company, or the industry that a company is in. So again, but before even getting started with looking at the companies, sit down with your thoughts for a little bit and think about what is really important to you in your job search, and use that to guide you as you start looking through the list of the companies that are attending the job fair. Use that to narrow down which companies specifically meet your criteria, or maybe you stumble upon an interesting company that doesn't quite meet your criteria, but you still want to learn more. In advance, there's a lot of great information that you can find on the platform itself. You can also Google the company, look at their company website, and get a better understanding of what those companies are going to be doing. There's nothing more impressive to a recruiter than meeting someone at a job fair who is already familiar with what their company does and what that company is hiring for. With that said, there are a lot of companies attending the career fair, and you certainly don't have to know everything about every company just to go talk to a recruiter. This is advice specifically for some of those top companies that you're most interested in, and absolutely feel free to go chat with recruiters for other companies, just to learn more. That's what we're there for. But most important is to really stay organized and keep yourself organized. If you're going down some rabbit holes here with these different companies, it can be easy to get things mixed up. So write down some of those key pieces of information from each of those top companies that you've decided you're interested in. again, just to help you as you're going through the career fair and talking to different recruiters. Like I mentioned, going to those specific job sites is really helpful, and understanding their open positions. I think it's really helpful to have a good idea of what open positions you're actually interested in as you're going and talking to a recruiter. Oftentimes, the people attending these career fairs might recruit for some of the company's open positions, but not all of them. So really being able to point them directly to what types of roles or specific roles you're interested in will really help them know where to guide your application moving forward. Um, Really, it's important to also be prepared to discuss yourself. The recruiter's there both to share more with you about the company and their open positions, but also to hear more from you. We're going to get a little bit more into that a little bit later in the elevator pitch section. But outside of your standard elevator pitch and specific to those companies that you're most interested in, what stands out to you? Why are you interested in those roles? What brought you to this company's booth? What value can you add to the company in that particular role? And then I think this one is really, really important. I absolutely love as a recruiter talking to folks who are looking to make a career change. That's always a tricky one, right? Because it's not always obvious when someone is interested in a role and their resume doesn't really match up at all to the job description. But those ones are fun to hear all about the transferable skill sets that someone might be bringing into a new role. So most importantly, if you are coming to this job fair and considering making a career shift, why the shift? Why now? And how are your skills transferable? Which of your skills are transferable? And being prepared to talk to that is really going to set you up for success and also just make you stand out to the recruiters. And then last but not least on this preparation and research topic is really making sure you're taking the time to update your profile. I know Arthur touched on creating your profile in the system itself, the career fair platform, but it's also really important to take the time to update your professional profiles, your LinkedIn profile. Often recruiters are going to finish up the career fair and then they're going to look at their list of names of people who stood out the most. A lot of recruiters are most comfortable looking at people's profiles on LinkedIn or resumes. So they will probably exit the career fair platform and go find you on LinkedIn or go look for your resume somewhere. So take the time to thoughtfully update your LinkedIn profile. Make sure your most recent job is listed on there. Make sure you have your skills listed. And then make sure that your roles, your role responsibilities in all of your roles are clear and concise. Usually bullet points are the easiest to read through versus paragraphs, and just making sure that at a quick glance, it's clear to a recruiter why they are interested in you, why you stood out to them in that career fair when they're going back and looking at your LinkedIn profile. And then of course, updating your resume as well and uploading it to that career fair platform. And we do have resume tips coming up in a few slides. But as a very, very important reminder, I would say the LinkedIn profile is one of the keys for recruiters for follow-up.
Excellent. Thank you so much. I appreciate that very much, Julia. So we'll next move on to elevator pitch with Tony. So Tony, go ahead.
Great, thank you. For anyone that's had an opportunity to meet with company leaders and even recruiters, you'll probably know firsthand that they often have a little bit of a narrative around what they're about. The elevator pitch is essentially that. Who are you and what are you really about? And this term elevator pitch is really been coined to provide people with some insight into essentially describing and showcasing who they are, I would say in less than 15, 20 seconds. you've often heard of that saying that, first impressions matter. Think of your elevator pitch as something that is an introduction for you that really gets people interested in you and what you're about. It doesn't require, hopefully, too much on the receiving part or the receiving audience or people that you're trying to communicate with to really think too hard. It should land pretty instantly with people that you're having a conversation with. And for most people, they need to think about using this elevator pitch not just on one-on-ones, but even perhaps, for example, in these kinds of contexts as well, if you're involved in a session like today's workshop. And as I mentioned, it really is more of a door opener. Now, if you haven't been using generative AI or ChatGPT, I'm going to encourage everyone to start using that so that you can start to do a little bit more creative work to help you both see what's out there, but secondly, to also look at what does the universe look like when it comes to some basic concepts like elevator pitch. If you were to do an elevator pitch, which I did one for a fictitious company called PayMe, and I went through Bing's Copilot and I asked, give me an elevator pitch for a mobile app. And if you haven't seen the number of companies that are in the fintech side of business, you'll know that there's a lot there. And what these companies, I think, all struggle with is differentiating themselves. And if you're looking at a career, let's just say you're a civil engineering student or chemical or software, you want to be able to showcase you and what's unique about you. So I'll just move on to the next slide, which is a little bit more about the kinds of things that really you should focus on. One, it really is about you and it should start with you. And does it connect with the audience? So you might have a pitch that probably works with a group of recruiters, but does it work with a group of business leaders in a conference setting? I think you have to try and articulate things that are a little bit unique about yourself, obviously, but also be mindful of the context that you're in. I think if you're talking to a recruiter, you want to have the elevator pitch focus more on the opportunity that you're being either interviewed or that you're showing interest in. If you're having a conversation with a CEO or a small company leader, you want to adjust your pitch or elevator pitch on the basis of what that leader does, what they or he and she is focused on for their business, and try to make your pitch a little bit more relevant to them. And for me, the standard of a good elevator pitch is, one, is it memorable? Can I remember that person? Two, does it strike a chord with me, and does it really sound unique? And if I'm a business leader, is it going to make sense to me? And as we've talked through in other kinds of forum with students, but also people that are going through a career transition, and this is something that Julie spoke about, is how you deliver is just as important as what you deliver. So this is something that I really encourage people to practice, but also to make sure that they have some thought and not to over practice either. So there's a fine line between coming out and being focused and sharp and concise, but not to rehearse, so you don't feel like you're on autopilot. I'll just now conclude the conversation with the next slide here on the kinds of things that you may have heard or seen. And once again, I use something like ChatGPT to give me potentially a sample pitch. And so I ran through and I said, give me a good pitch for an industrial engineer. And then I went back and looked at some other pitches that I've seen and heard, and I modified this. So this is a sample one here for an industrial engineer. And once again, if you're thinking about talking to a recruiter or leaders, think about what you really offer and what makes you stand out, and then practice it to an extent, but also look at where we are from a conversation, so that you can then modify and or maybe respond to maybe some follow-up questions, because a pitch is good. You also have to be prepared then for the follow-up question afterwards. I think that was the end of my segment there. Over to Laura.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Tony. I appreciate that. Appreciate also that you making this particularly relevant with today's technology and ChatGPT and Bard and all of these things that are really adding on to kind of our arsenal of tools to develop our pitch. and also, quite frankly, to think about how we might incorporate those things in terms of talking about our resume,
Absolutely.
which Laura
Exactly.
will then, yeah, then Laura can talk to us about resumes. And so over to you, Laura.
Perfect. And what's most important about resumes is that they are targeting a certain audience, a certain position, a certain job. So going back to what Julia talked about with the research is key. Going through job descriptions, finding out what those skills, what competencies, what experience are they looking for. And I have here personal brand, because you are a brand, you are a product. And in your box, you have all of these things that create who you are, your body language, clothing, how you show up, and as well your verbal and written communication. So you want to make sure that your resume is speaking to your personal brand, looking at skills and competencies, your strengths, your expertise, what's unique about you, those unique attributes, and your potential. And that resume speaks to those things through your experience and through your accomplishments. Not just actions, but what value do you add? Because if I can see on a resume that you've added value to the previous company or your current company, and I can say, wow, you've done that there, here's what you're going to do for me. So when we look at skills too, we're looking at the hard skills and the soft skills. So not just your technical capabilities, your artificial intelligence that we've talked about, or the cloud computing or cybersecurity, but what is your emotional intelligence? How flexible and adaptable are you? What about critical thinking and problem solving and creativity and innovation? So you want to make sure you're speaking to all of those on your resume. So I have some sample resume. In the next slide, there's a sample resume. I want to just walk us through that resume to talk about what's important in the different areas. First of all, the resume is implied I. So you're never using the word I am an electrical engineer, for example. It's implied. So when I'm reading your resume, I'm hearing you say I am, or I can, or I will. You want action verbs. And if you look at this resume, you can see increase, troubleshoot, transform, reverse, those action words, lead, those things that tell me they're strong and they're concrete. You also want to make sure you're using keywords. So doing that research, looking at position job requirements and position requirements, and making sure that you're using the key skills they're looking for. But let's look at this resume. So we've got Jane Ryan, and you can see at the top of her resume, we're only putting her city and state. You don't have to put your physical address on a resume anymore. You want to have one number, your most available number. You don't have to put several numbers on there, just your key number. And then you want to use an email. I usually encourage people to create a job search email. You don't want it to be a personal email that might, I'm a Tiger fan, so maybe I say Tiger fan 1984 or something like that. You don't want to use personal emails. You want it to be a job search professional email, and use your name if you can. And then have your LinkedIn link as well, URL there that I can click on, and it'll take me right to your LinkedIn profile that you've updated. And then you can see I've used a title at the top called Senior Engineer, Control System Software, telling right away what I'm targeting and who I am and what I want to work toward. All of these things are really important to quickly get people a sense of who you are. And this top quarter of the resume is your key real estate, as we call it. So we've got core competencies, if you want to list some core competencies that relate to that particular job that you're targeting. That all of these things are important. Year of graduation, not the years that you attended. So just the year of graduation, if you want to put that on there. You don't have to label, as you see at the top, the phone. I don't have to put cell phone or anything like that. I know it's a phone number. Spell out acronyms. So you can spell out the acronym and then put the letters in parentheses, and then from there forward on the resume you can use the letters, but spell it out once. Don't assume I'm going to know what you're talking about. Let's go to the next slide. We talk about accomplishments. So don't just tell me what you've done. Tell me what difference it's made. And you can see on this slide that we've got provided exemption guidance for new engine gen sets resulting in. So here's the money that I saved, or here's the money that I made in what I've done for the company, so that me as a hiring manager or me as a recruiter can look in and say, wow, you've created that for that company. Think of what you can do for me. If you can't talk specific numbers, and sometimes you can't, you can talk about percentages. So I increased sales by a certain percentage, or I saved a certain percentage of money on cost savings or efficiency savings. So look not only to the quantity, but also quality, the outcomes. And you can create these by using, on the last slide, I have SAR stories. So SAR stories are situation, action, result stories. And this is a way not only to create your stories for interviewing, you can create them for interviewing, but you can also get the results, the result piece of those SAR stories for your resumes. So what was the obstacle? What was the challenge? What steps did you take to address the challenge? What skills did you use? And work yourself through that story. And then what was the result? How did it benefit the company? Quantify, like I said, when possible. Did you meet an objective? Did you get a project done on time or ahead of schedule? Did you solve a problem, increase or decrease something? What were the consequences? How did you leave it different and better? And those are the resume bullets that you want to put on your resume. Sometimes you might have to put a little bit of the action you took before you can show the result, but really make sure that you're focused on those results. And with that, I think I will turn it back over to Arthur for the
Yeah,
next
I'll take it. I'll take it here just to kind of introduce the next section. So appreciate that, Laura. And I think the interesting thing about the SAR stories and making sure that your resume bullets kind of explain a good story, as you can imagine, obviously the resume is going to be the source material for questions. So Laura's point about having a good story to go along with the bullet and making sure all of those are paired up is going to be extremely useful for you when you start to tell the stories, because your resume is the source material where questions are very, very likely to come up. So our next section is on virtual networking, and Tony and Julia, I think, are going to work together on this section.
Great, thank you. Yeah, this is another really important dimension to career planning, career progression, and really having an active voice in planning for your future. And you can do this in many different ways. And with the technology that we now have, you can likely be doing this pretty much anywhere from any corner of the universe. Obviously, COVID was a major impact to business and to a lot of our economic activity and also with our communities. But one of the things it did usher in was really robust platforms for networking. And you can do this as a student, you can do this as a professional. And for me, generally as a business leader, I like to do this because it keeps me really focused on what is happening in the marketplace, but it also introduces me to an array of potential clients, but also people that I can help. And I do a lot of work. I'm going to call it Paying It Forward. I really love working with professionals that are making a career change. And for me, I often participate in things like this because I think it's more important not only to be doing things for yourself, but also to help other people as well. So much more important than you think. Obviously, can help you learn a little bit more about companies, their culture, and their priorities if you have a conversation with anyone that's affiliated with a company. And as I mentioned, it keeps you more current on what's happening. So if you're still in the job market or looking to upgrade your career opportunities, I would say have one or two of these locked in every couple of weeks so that you can at least be up to date, informed, and be on the cusp of what potentially could be an opportunity. And obviously, through any kind of networking, what you want to do is expand your whole referral base. Now, I've given you guys a definition here to the right, and for me, it's always about a journey. And don't think of networking as being something that's going to give you an immediate return. Think of it as an opportunity where you learn and people learn about you. And I think the most important thing for me is this is your journey, so you can set the pace and really the kind of intensity that you want to apply and the duration. So I'll just move on now to the next slide, which is more focused around how to get started. Number one, join an association, join some kind of membership related agency or not-for-profit. I didn't realize, but I was part of SME years ago when I was involved in building solutions industry, and I was working in the learning and development space, and we were trying to get learning and sessions for professional engineers to be honored for continuous education. And so for me, this opened the door to a lot more than just that. And I've come to really love what SME is about. And I'm on the Canadian side of the business, but I did a lot of work in the US, and an SME for me has been one of the more remarkable, I would say, not voluntary, but kind of industry associations, because there's so much range. There's such a breadth of different professionals that are connected to it. And I think you'll find there's a few others out there, and you need to obviously speak to other people, ask them about what kind of other volunteer networks exist and what kind of associations might be out there. And there's a number of them, especially if you become a professional engineer as well. One of the things that I do, and some of my colleagues here today are doing, we volunteer quite a bit. And we do that because obviously we're interested in learning, but also we want to introduce what we do to other people and also get some feedback in the market. And as a candidate, as someone who's looking to grow your career, I would say by doing these kind of things, you're also getting some good feedback about who you are, what you are doing, and how you're coming across. And if you remember the whole sort of elevator pitch idea, I think it gives you an opportunity to practice things and to get some feedback. Finally, if you have any specific questions, it's always good to reach out and show an interest, whether it's a company or recruiter or any kind of professional association. I think you'll see more and more that people are always interested in helping. I'll turn it over to Laura for the last part of this conversation.
Oh, I am actually gonna hop in here, Tony, instead. So as Tony was saying, it's networking is a process, and one of the most important things to remember with the networking process is that it takes a lot of effort. It's not something that comes easily to most people on either side of the equation, whether you're the one reaching out or you're responding to someone who has reached out to you. So it takes a lot of effort to follow up and to keep things on your calendar. But it's really important to do that. It's really important to keep that at the forefront of your mind as you're continuing to grow in your career. It's really easy to get kind of bogged down in what's going on in your specific workplace. But keeping a few networking events on your calendar regularly is really going to help you in the long run. Really make sure that as you are reaching out, scheduling these networking opportunities, commit to those. You're not going to be doing yourself any favors if you're having to cancel things on the last minute. But really make sure that you're being attentive to those and showing up with your full self. Most importantly, I think this curiosity piece and this willingness to learn from others is really vital to networking, because one connection might lead to another connection, might lead to two more connections that might really be quite different from where you thought you were going when you reached out to that first person. That's great. That to me is one of the best parts of networking, because it can really introduce you to different corners of your industry or different industries even that you maybe didn't even know existed. And you can really learn a lot and end up finding new interests for yourself as well. So Don't think necessarily that just because you're getting connected with someone who isn't exactly in the specific space you thought they might be in, don't ignore that opportunity. That's actually a really wonderful opportunity.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Julia and Tony. And I think from a networking perspective, I think the key thing that I'd like just to kind of add on to is to make sure you're keeping your active network engaged. The worst thing you can do is kind of let that go for a while. And when you need something from your network, whether it be work related or happens to be in job search, if you're in that kind of situation, it can take a while to get it activated. So if you're nurturing it and it's a real living, breathing thing that you've been working on, in order when you want to activate it at that time, it's far, far easier if you spend a little bit of time working on it, as Tony and Julia have suggested. So as we kind of close on the last section for our presentation is going to be in follow-up, and Laura and I will cover this point. On the follow-up, it's going to be really important that you do that in a very, very timely way. So the first thing that we talk about is, when you follow up, how quickly should you follow up? The art of timely follow-up is very much promptness is the key. We really want you to do something very, very quickly afterwards. We talk about the obvious, right? It's always fresh in your mind. You will have the easiest time in terms of making a very active connection if you do it immediately afterwards. And that's going to be really, really important. The thing I will tell you right now is the best part of the most important part of follow-up is actually in your planning and preparation phase. You need to be very organized going into the event, realizing that you're going to be following up afterwards. So you need to be very conscious about your interactions and making sure you get contact information from the people that you interact with in this career fair, but also in any interaction that you have. So there are different methods, of course, for organizing yourself and how to do this, spreadsheets, there's business card apps, things of that sort when you're doing it more in person. But make sure that you have something well thought out in advance about how you're going to keep track of all the contacts that you're making. With respect to the virtual tools, I touched on my journey very early. After the event, everything that you do online in terms of your trail through the career event, so to speak, is going to be tracked. So all of that information will be there for you. But you're not quite sure. You want to make sure you have a really good interaction with somebody, and you don't want to lose that connection. Use the tools on your computer or on your phone and take a screenshot, and maybe you can kind of keep track of that information that way. The other side of it is personalization wins. There's some very interesting dialogue on LinkedIn. If you're kind of following in the career space, there's a real backlash for some reason on thank you notes, and I don't understand that personally, but make sure you do send a thank you note. It's a really important and nice touch to make sure that you do this so that they understand that you're very interested in the role and the opportunity that you have, and you can reinforce that interest through a very well-crafted and personalized thank you note. So make sure also to send a LinkedIn invitation to the individual to connect with them with a personalized message. Don't just hit the connect button. Send in that personalized message in the thank you note and in the LinkedIn connection. Please use your active listening and note-taking skills as your conversation goes. So maybe you can put something from that conversation into the note, a key element about the conversation, about the company, about the opportunity. And again, you can reinforce your interest and some skills or abilities that you have that would make you a great candidate for that role. And in the follow-up communications, there's a lot of different ways you can do it. There's definitely pros and cons to each one. The easiest one for us these days is just to use email, of course, and that's certainly okay. LinkedIn, I talked about when you make your connection, you can also do it that way as well. I think the nicest touch that you can make, though, is if you do it personally. If you're able to get the contact information and you can actually reach out to them and schedule a follow-up call or a follow-up video, that's a really ideal way of making that connection, reinforcing your interest, enabling yourself to continue that conversation with the organization with the hopes of really building that relationship so that, when you get in front of them and they remember you and you can have a much more meaningful conversation. The other side of it is making sure, very simply, just email etiquette, proofreading, maintaining a professional tone. Even if you do really click well with a person, make sure you still keep the relationship at a professional level so that, it is a business communication after all. So Laura, I'll let you take the next couple of slides. Laura, you on mute or?
Sorry about that. Solidifying that foundation. So following up on your follow-up, I guess is what we say. So how do I build beyond that first? I sent the first thank you note. Now what? Don't sit back and wait. Remember that recruiters are not only working with you, they're working with a lot of other people and probably several other positions. So it's up to you to keep them focused on you. So you want to wait. You send the thank you note. Hopefully, if you've had an interview or a conversation with them, you've been able to say, so when can I follow up with you? And you can even set a date for that to say, can I follow up with you in a week? That helps you to feel comfortable following up in a week because you've already gotten their permission, so to speak, to do that. Each time you have a conversation with someone, you want to say, so what is the next step and how do I follow up and when can I follow up, so that you feel comfortable doing that. We say here, pleasant persistence and patience. So if you don't hear, remember again, like I said, they're busy people just like we are. We're all busy. You may have to follow up a couple of times. And usually if you've followed up, I know Arthur has shared his rule of 3. If you follow up 3 times and you still don't hear anything, it might be time to move on to another opportunity. But don't, if you really want to work for that company and for some reason that particular position hasn't worked out, a no is not a never. And this is so important. So don't think that even if you do get a follow-up and it says, thank you very much, but we're moving in a different direction, that kind of follow-up, don't take that as a, we never want to talk to you again. Follow up and thank them for their time. One more follow-up after that. I had a client who did this. He wanted to work at this company. He was turned down for 3 different jobs at this company, but he kept following up and saying, thank you for taking the time to speak with me. I'm disappointed, of course, but please keep me in mind. I love your company. Here's why I love your company. The CEO saw that and said, we need to get this guy in. So the next opportunity we have that fits this guy, we need to get him in. So his follow-up got him his job. Along with, of course, he matched the job and was a good candidate for it. So a no is not a never, and please always remember that. Following up also with your network, I think we talked about that earlier, nurturing those connections. So thinking about beyond what they might be able to help you with, how can you help your network? Start to think about, who do I know that I might be able to refer to a recruiter that I'm working with? Maybe the job isn't appropriate for me, but I have a friend and I can reach out to Arthur and say, hey, Arthur, I saw that you're looking for someone to fit this position. You should speak to my friend, or you should speak to my referral, because I think they're a perfect fit for that. So start thinking about ways that you can nurture your network and continue that connection by also offering value, because you have value to offer. Leveraging LinkedIn. So, I mean, it's a great tool, and being able to get on LinkedIn, and if you have a new target company, plug that company in and look to see who do I know in that company. As Julia said, they may not be the person that you need to talk to, but they may know someone that you need to talk to. And that's another key about your network. Don't just network with people in your profession. Look for people outside of your profession, because you never know who they know. I mean, I might have started out in child welfare and you might have thought, Laura wouldn't know anyone in engineering. She's in child welfare. But I might have a friend or a colleague who does know somebody who can get you connected. So as Julia said earlier, key again, don't discount people because they may not seem like they're a good fit. And then always look to improve, reflect on where you are, reflect on what you've done, and improve that network. And other ways that you can find to reach out to people, and even going to in-person opportunities. Go to a networking event that might be in your community. And we may not all like to do that. I certainly don't like to go to in-person events where I don't know anyone. But what I do as an introvert is I will offer to be on the registration table. And then I'm signing people in. I'm busy, I'm doing something, but I'm also meeting everybody who comes to the event. And I can say, oh, Julia, oh, you're a recruiter. I'd love to spend some time talking to you after the event gets started. And then I don't feel so weird walking up to her and just introducing myself, because I've met her at the table doing something else, or you can volunteer to help set up or whatever that is. But if you're a little more introverted, getting actively involved in committees can help with that networking as well. I don't know what I've missed, Arthur, but
I don't think you've missed everything. The only thing I wanted to add is for the engineers out there, I did throw in the Plan, Do, Check, Act. I think the Reflect and Improve, and Laura talked about that obviously very well through it, but just reflect on how it's going. If it's not going the way you would like, then make a few changes and figure out ways to get yourself introduced into the areas that are of interest to you. So that takes us to our question and answer phase. So I've been kind of looking at the chat and I don't see any questions yet. So if you have any questions, please throw them in the chat and we will address those through. But as we were going through the presentations, I took a few notes and I wanted to ask Tony a question about the elevator pitch. And Tony, you were talking about using AI and the tools for that. And, you know, I think a lot of people might think that, okay, well, I'll use it for that and then I'll just use it to create a script. I think one of the things we're concerned about when you're doing the elevator pitch is how authentic you are, your authenticity. Right. So how might you suggest that they use these tools but still keep their real true voice in place?
That's a good question. And I think you'll find that the more you use whether it's ChatGPT or Bing, you will learn how to craft your own voice using that content or material as a reference point. And for me, in the kind of business we're in, we generate a lot of content and we often are developing learning solutions. And so we use ChatGPT and other AI-enabled platforms to give us a reference point. And it doesn't mean that you're now taking every little piece of content from that and then copy and pasting. I think that is going to be counterproductive to anyone. For me, it just accelerates my research, and that's how I look at either Copilot or any other AI platform. And you really have to have, I think, a point of view, and I call it a voice. So I think the more you practice writing and the more you practice putting things into some kind of format that is naturally the way you communicate, the more authentic you will be. So for me, I remember 15, 20 years ago when I was bringing in new engineering students and I'm going to call them kids, anyone that's younger than me is a kid, into a new role. I would see some, and it didn't matter what kind of role they were in. Some people would take I'm going to call it the lazy approach, which was to kind of just go online, do some research, do cutting and pasting, and kind of give you a sort of a product. I have zero interest in that. And I have zero interest in people that aren't really thinking critically about content that they're seeing and reflecting, and then using that as a springboard to create their own. So for me, once again, if any of you that have had courses and that you may have already been starting to use that, there's so much now technology that also starts to critique and evaluate content that's been generated by ChatGPT or any other generative AI platforms. So to answer your question, use the tools that are out there, become comfortable in using those tools, but really create a voice that is uniquely yours, that is an Arthur voice, that is a Tony voice, and then start to write things out that come off naturally for you, and start to think about questions that you may be asked in advance so that you can also formulate a response. So to go back to the question, elevator pitch is good, have some follow-up, right? And if some of the follow-ups might be, what got you interested in this career? Tell me a little bit about the kinds of things that you were really good at while you were doing your program. where do you see yourself in 5 years? I know what you want to do now as an industrial engineer, but what other opportunities do you see down the road? So hopefully we've touched on a few of those areas, but Arthur, really going back to creating a voice, and I think there's no way better of creating your own voice by practicing, learning, and also writing a lot and being involved in conversations.
Great. Thank you so much, Tony. So one of the questions from the chat was, how do we know that companies are open to visa sponsorships in the virtual career fair? So I might ask, one of the SME folks to maybe help us out. But I think as you go through this, it's difficult in some cases to know until you actually start having a conversation. So as you go in and start to explore the companies, take a look at the company information, the about section, but it may require you to go through the actual job description itself and see perhaps what the company has put in there to see if they have any restrictions on residency requirements and things like that, or if they might be open to it. I think if you have an interesting background, it still might be worthwhile to have that chat with the organization, because even if that position that you are perhaps interested in at the career fair may not be quite a fit because of restrictions, they may find that you are interesting enough. If you have a chat with the recruiter and generate some interest there, it's not unheard of that companies create an opportunity for great people. They're always looking for those those golden nuggets. And so if you make yourself known, show your interest, talk about the preparation and research that we've talked about today, and I think that you might see some really good things coming from that. So I don't know if Chantel or anybody else from the SME side, do you have any comments on that?
No, Arthur, thanks. And just Krishna, I will follow up with Women in Manufacturing as well to find out if they've had similar issue, or let me say, if they've had jobs that have been specifying if they're open to visa roles. So, and Krishna, I will follow up with you separately.
Thank you so much, Chantel. I appreciate that. So another question we have in the chat is a person has started a new position that is very relevant to her job search, and feels comfortable about talking about it in person, but not sure what to say about it on your resume. So Laura, do you have any thoughts along that line?
I do. It's a great question because we don't know what to say on the resume when we don't have maybe any outcomes to speak to yet. But one of the best things you can do is add it to your resume and talk about why you were hired. So you were hired to, is there a problem that you're solving, a project that you're going to run, a challenge that you're going to, do you have to build a team? What is it that you're going to have to do for them? And put that on your resume, because that says a lot about the skills you're bringing to the table. And then if there are any goals that you have, putting the goals on can also show here's an outcome that I'm expected to achieve, another goal, and then as you're doing those, remember to go back to the resume and complete that outcome. So now I've achieved this, and now I've achieved this. So track what you're doing, and it's a good way to start out in a new position, to know what your goals are and track those goals as you accomplish them and get them in your head. But again, go back to, why were you hired? You were hired to solve a problem, to run a business, to run a project, and at least put that on.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Laura. Chantel, do we have time for one more question, or are we kind of running out of time here?
We're running out of time, but let's go ahead and ask one more question.
Okay. So Julie, I wanted to ask a question on your side is, for career fair participants, what should they pay attention to during the career fair and potential follow-up to find out if the company is right for them? Because it's sometimes going to be very hard to do that when a virtual event, right?
Absolutely. And I think that's a really important question, because interviewing is always a two-way street. It's not just trying to impress the company that you're talking about. It's also making sure that you might be happy working at that company. And so there's always going to be some signals, even from the company website. Does that company have values that you're aligned to? is the person that you're interacting with from that company, are they someone that you would feel comfortable working with? If this is someone who is representing the company at a career fair, hopefully there's someone who also is representing the values of that company. So pay attention to that. If you're going through interviews, are your interviewers prepared? Do they know who they're speaking with? Do they know what they're interviewing for? And all of those can be really important indicators as you are going through not just the career fair, but follow-ups. Are you having to ping a recruiter 5 times to get a response from them? And use all of those as pointers to really better understand if this is the type of company that you're going to be happy working for. And that's going to be different for everybody, right? Some companies are going to have really environments that are really focused on like a healthy work-life balance, and that's going to be really fantastic for a lot of people. Other companies are going to have environments that are maybe a little more chaotic, maybe a little more in that like fast-paced kind of exciting growth phase, and that might be what you're looking for as well. So going back to the preparation of thinking about what's important to you, what type of environment are you looking for, and keep an eye out for those indicators as you're going through the process.
Super. Thank you so much. And Chantal, we have a question in the chat. So I was wondering if I could try to squeeze that in.
Yeah, sure. And I did also respond to Tamer to encourage him to, or her, excuse me, to email us at membership@sme.org, and we can help identify some additional resources. But if any of you have some thoughts as well to assist.
Yeah, basically the question was, they're a student in aerospace engineering looking to get a position as a manufacturing engineer, and they've been doing online courses like Tooling U and getting a certified manufacturing associate certification. Are there other things that you might recommend for this person to do to make them a bit more marketable? I don't know if Julia or you, Tony, if you have any suggestions there.
Go ahead, Tony.
Hey, Julia, you want to jump in, or I can jump in?
Yeah, go ahead, Tony.
How do you make yourself more marketable? I think really it's really a couple of things, and we've all referenced them to some degree with Julia and Lauren. You have to create some kind of consistency, 1, in your communication, 2, in your personal brand, and 3, in how you show up in different kind of forums. Virtual networking, it's going to be a relationship. It's not going to be a one-off. If you put that kind of effort and that kind of mindset, I think you will start to find that you will grow 1, your kind of referral base, and 2, you'll also start to grow more confidence because you're practicing things, you're getting feedback, and you're also having the opportunity to actually articulate things that are important to you and that might resonate with people out there. So think of this as a craft and really something that you have to work on. That would be my sort of approach.
Super.
Yeah, and I just dropped this in the chat as well, but if you've done personal side projects, if you've, built something interesting in your garage just for fun, put that on your resume, put that on your LinkedIn profile. I absolutely love to see that. That really helps someone stand out, in my opinion.
Yeah, clubs and organizations as well. Any projects that you've worked on, if you worked on a project with a university professor, if you have time, that's actually a great way to get a little bit of research experience and perhaps even exposure to some companies, because some professors are tied to research projects that are related to companies that are associated with the universities.
And one more thing you can do is, if you've got some target companies, start following those companies on LinkedIn and look to see what they're posting. Look to see what the people who work at those companies are posting, and start to respond to those posts when you're taking those classes. And they may be talking about a particular tool that you're learning. You have something to say about it. So starting conversations with people will get you noticed and will heighten your visibility in that space. So anytime you can use LinkedIn to have conversations like that, it would be helpful for you.
That's a great point, Laura. Thank you very much.
Mhm.
Well, thank you everybody so much for contributing your time and your expertise. I hope that everyone who participated in today's program took away a lot of valuable knowledge. And if you haven't yet registered for the Joint Virtual Career Fair, there is a QR code here on the screen that will be on February 8th from 10 to 2 p.m. That is during the whole time that you'd be able to participate. You can sign in, sign out, come and go as your schedule fits. Elise, my colleague, put the actual direct link in the chat. And we have one more preparedness program that will take place next Wednesday, February 7th from 2 to 2:30. This will be a coffee chat about personal branding. How do you stand out in the crowd? And finally, we ask if you would please take a brief moment to fill out a survey. Let us know, how did we do today? How is this program and other programs you are participating in hitting the mark? It helps us ensure that we are providing you maximum value for your membership. So again, Arthur, Laura, Tony, and Julia, thank you so very much for your time today. And we wish everyone a wonderful afternoon, and we will see you soon.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.